Hey everybody, it's hwsteele. Today is February 9th, 2024. This is a Friday, and this video is going to be talking about support and resistance clutter and what you can do to mitigate that or reduce the influence of a bunch of clutter of support and resistance. Before we get started, let me remind everybody that all my old videos, or most of my old videos, on this YouTube channel will eventually be migrating over to the new one, hwsteele Classics. I'll leave a link to that in the description of this video. And so with that said, let's go ahead and get to the contents of this video. Now this is my example chart for this particular video, crude oil future March 2024 contract. And as you can see, it's a 1 hour chart. This is the most recent data. The market, you'll probably see the market move around a little bit since it's currently open, but we're going to look at this uptrend for right now. Just focus on this a little bit. And all I'm going to do is start putting lines on tops, little highs that get made. And we can see that there's a lot of highs in this particular move up right here. There's a lot of the market moving back and forth, which obviously creates these highs. And as you can see, something happens as a result. And obviously, you can tell what's going on. There's a lot of clutter. And we have these highs that we could mark right here, and so forth and so on. So we have a lot of clutter on this particular chart right here. Some markets it wouldn't be so bad. It moves a lot more before we get a top or a bottom. But this chart right here, this oil chart, we can put one right here and then this one right up here. This oil chart has got a lot. And these are just the highs. I didn't mark the lows. I just marked the highs. So theoretically, there's going to be about this many lines in addition, but they're all from lows, in addition to what's already on the chart. So this is clearly cluttered. And we kind of wonder, well, what in the world, how this isn't going to be very helpful to us. We've got so many lines in the chart. How do we know what the market is or isn't going to stop at? And the honest answer is we don't necessarily know. Also, keep in mind that the topic of this video is not including the concepts of what to do when the market gets to support and resistance. We're just looking at identifying support and resistance and looking for ways to reduce clutter on your chart like this. So one of the first things that we can do is something that I've already talked about, and that's create zones of support and resistance. So for instance, this topping area right here has 3 tops. So we could delete this line right there, and it starts to get a little bit cleaner. We have 3 tops right here, and I didn't actually put a line right there. If I had, we would delete that, and that would clean that up a little bit. So we can, by creating these zones, reduce some of the lines on the chart and just know it's a zone. But there's a bit of a problem. When looking at this chart, can you just immediately see what's a zone and what's actual just an individual line? Well, if we use, let me show you, the price range tool or measurer, since it's in that group here on TradingView charts, we can use that to mark our zones of support and or resistance so that we can eliminate the lines that go across the chart. So it's less intrusive, and this tool right here can be used in such a way that you can go to settings and have the extension that goes off to the left not be there. And as a result, we can see where this support or resistance zone comes from. So now we have a lot less clutter, and we can see, and we can actually go here and change how the background, we can change it, make it a lot thicker, more bright, or a lot cleaner. So I like to have it where it's enough where I can see that it's a zone back there. It's colored in just a little bit, but it's not so much so that when I look at the chart, I can't see what's going on with the actual candles. So we have one of those. We have another one that we could put right here. It starts right there, goes right there. And so we can delete these lines, and that cleans up the chart quite a bit. We have another one right here. So I recommend, if you're actually going to use support and resistance and decide to use support and resistance zones also, to use a tool like this on your charting platform. Again, I'm using tradingview.com charts. So if you are also, it's a pretty common charting platform. If you're using it also, then you'll have access to this tool. And you can see it really cleans up the charts a lot to use this. And you can, of course, this is a minor, so we can make our minors way thinner. Minor top or bottom, minor support or resistance. And by making them thinner, where you can barely see them, it's less intrusive. This one, we could consider this a major top, but if you look, there's a top right there and another one right there. So of course, this gives us a minor little zone area right there. So we have another zone, and then this one would stay and that one would stay. So you can see that just by using this particular tool right here to color in the zones a little bit differently than the actual individual support or resistance levels with the horizontal lines, that we've cleaned the chart up significantly, right? Another thing that we can do to clean the chart up is to only use the levels that are by the price action. So in other words, let's say that this vertical line right here is the current, let me zoom in. This is where the market's at, trading at right here, just as an example. So we would only use support or resistance that we're getting from right here. We wouldn't have all this other stuff marked on our chart so it doesn't distract from us. And as the market moves and starts trading lower and lower, then we would start paying attention to the support or resistance levels or zones that are most recent to the price action that's going on. So we wouldn't necessarily have a bunch of lines on our chart in that particular case. We would just have the lines on our chart that have to do with the price area that we're at that particular point in time. This can also happen on multiple time frames. In other words, we could go back to the daily time frame. Let's change to the daily here and scroll over here. This is the price action that we're looking at that was on the hourly chart right there. And we can see on the daily chart right here that we have a price resistance zone on the daily chart. So I could see there's the low, there's the high, and I could make this a darker green color, or I could make it blue or whatever, however you want to note that it's on a daily time frame. So we would look at the daily time frame, we would note the levels that are close to us, and then we would go back to what we were trading off of, which in this fictitious example would be the hourly chart, so that we knew when price got close to this, that this was the level that we were looking at for support or resistance from the daily chart. Make sense? So in other words, we don't have to go back. If we go back to the daily chart here, we don't have to go back and make this zone and this zone and this zone and this zone and all these different levels. We just have to mark what's going on the current market's price action, what's near that. And the same thing for the hourly where we're trading. We don't have to pay attention to this necessarily, and we don't have to note it on the actual chart or mark it on the actual chart until price action starts going towards it. And once that happens, then we can go back and look at the history and say, okay, well, there was a price zone there, there was a zone there, so I'm going to put that on the chart now. Another thing you can do is just go back to the previous swing, look at the previous swing and mark that up and not worry about what came before it. So in other words, it's pretty much the same as what I was just describing, where only the price action that's by the market movement, but instead of using just what's right around it, you just go back for the entirety of the last swing on whatever time frame you're actually trading off of. So if it turns out that support and resistance trading is something that you wind up using or that you are using, you would develop your own method of declutter for the chart that fits your personality. Some people want as much information as possible on the chart, And while that's good, that can actually be debilitating sometimes. For other people, it's not. They just like it. But really, the best way to figure out what you're going to do to help declutter your chart with support and resistance levels and zones should be something that you really work on figuring out after you decide what your trading plan is going to include. So if you're going to use support and resistance zones and levels in your trading plan, you need to figure out how you're going to use them, and then that information can assist you greatly in how to declutter the support and resistance from your chart. So with that in mind, next week's video, we're going to look at starting to build a very basic baby, so to speak, trading plan revolving around support and resistance trading. So starting next week, we're going to start building a trading plan. Okay, so you're definitely not going to want to miss that. So anyway, I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you in next week's video.